I think that there is still, although getting smaller, a chance that you could get some sort of regulatory action where everyone understands Bitcoin is through the threshold of, is it a security? Is it not a security? It's not a security. Bitcoin in bull markets is a race between the influx of speculators being converted to long-term holders. That type of volatility, they didn't sell. And then it dropped 80%. They still didn't sell. It went up 500%. They still didn't sell. Volatility doesn't scare them. They want the volatility.
What if the United States could own millions of Bitcoin with just the stroke of a pen? Anthony Pompliano lays out a near zero but chilling scenario of how governments might claim the future of digital gold and why the price could still soar.
I think that there is still, although getting smaller, a chance that you could get some sort of regulatory action where everyone understands Bitcoin is through the threshold of, is it a security? Is it not a security? It's not a security. But if the United States really needs Bitcoin, it really looks like those ETFs that you got there. Wouldn't it be nice if that Bitcoin became ours? Hey, MicroStrategy, that Bitcoin you got there, wouldn't that be nice if that became ours? With like the signing of a pen, the United States could own millions of coins. I think the ETFs now have 1.1 million. Sailor's got 400,000. The US has already got 200K. That's 1.6 million right there. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I think that it is a very small, near 0% chance, but still there's risk, right? And so in a weird way, if Bitcoin became so highly successful that every country around the world wanted it, we always think in the Western world terms. And let's say that you've got the faith that the United States government is not going to do that. Do you think there's another government somewhere in the world that's going to do that? Hell yeah. Right? So again, we always talk in terms of the United States, but then people say, oh, the US isn't going to do that. Okay, I can rattle off a laundry list of other countries that people will think have a high probability of doing that. And so you get into this game of like, okay, well, if some random country that no one can point out on a map does it, who cares? Bitcoin doesn't care, price doesn't care, whatever. But there's some countries that if they did it outside the United States, people would care, right? We saw China, as an example, kicking out all the miners in 2021. Again, they affected the hash rate, but that had a pretty profound impact. Bitcoin went down 50%. So it depends on what the countries are, what they're doing, all the nuance, whatever, but there's risk to price. Bitcoin in bull markets is a race between the influx of speculators being converted to long-term holders. So price goes up, speculators show up. Price goes up, speculators show up. Most people buy Bitcoin for the first time because they think they're going to get rich. Fine, that's how economics work. That's how free markets work. It's how personal incentives work. At some point, they get converted from, I'm going to get rich, I'm here to speculate, to I'm a hardcore long-term Bitcoin holder. No matter what you tell me, I'm not selling. Some process that happens there. Let's say that that process is 6 months. I think maybe that's a fair kind of average. It takes 6 months or so, maybe 12. If the bull market lasts in 2025, anyone who buys after March of 2025 will still be speculating at the top of the bull market. They haven't had time to become a hardcore holder yet. So as that price turns over and starts to fall, some portion of those people sell. They're not convinced yet of Bitcoin, they're speculating. And so what you actually want to see is, if you could ideally draw it up, you'd want tons of new people to show up before the bull market, but that's not how price works. So at one point in 2021, 50% of Bitcoiners had shown up in 2020 and 2021. 50% of all holders were new in that bull market in the up phase. They never lived through a down phase. A good portion of those people are still around today. Not all of them. Some of them washed out, some of them sold. That obviously helped, draw the price down. But you have to also try to figure out, how do you go from speculator to long-term holder? How do you compress that time frame? There's more information available today. There's podcasts, there's blogs, newsletters, TV coverage, friends are talking, there's all these things that are helping, but it doesn't happen overnight. And so that is a risk, is that you get such a rush of people towards the end, through a bull market, that they're not long-term holders yet. And so when that price turns over, they just sell. And so I always, keep asking my friends, what do you think the financial advisors are going to do? You think that they're going to become like, hardcore Bitcoin holders? Some of them, but the majority of them are going to buy it. They're going to FOMO in Q2 2025 after we're already at, whatever price, because their clients are calling them being like, you moron, you told me not to buy this thing and all my friends are getting rich. They're going to say, fine, I'm wrong, buy it. It's going to peak, going to start to fall, and they can't wait. And so it's this weird dynamic of just like speculation is needed because it brings in capital, drives price, all that kind of stuff. But if they don't convert to long-term holders in enough time, you get the drawdowns.
Pompliano dives deep into the evolving Bitcoin landscape exploring regulatory risks and global dynamics that could affect the cryptocurrency's future. While the probability of the US seizing Bitcoin is negligible, the mere discussion underscores the value and vulnerability of this decentralized asset. He highlights how ETFs and corporate holdings make millions of Bitcoin accessible to governments if they deem it necessary. But it's not just the US, global players, from Western democracies to authoritarian regimes, could disrupt the market. Drawing on China's past crackdown on miners, Pompliano illustrates how actions by major nations could shake Bitcoin's price, emphasizing the critical importance of resilience among long-term holders.
It's not about the president. It's about the structure of the market. It's about the liquidity cycle. It's about the devaluation of the currency, the national debt, and all these other kind of economic things. But it doesn't matter because nobody cares about facts, figures, data, charts, and graphs. What they want is they want a face. And there's nobody greater in the world at taking that sentiment of all of that structural, smart, sophisticated analysis and saying, look at my hair, look at my dances, listen to the YMCA, and we're going higher. And he's figured it out. And so regardless of whether he's actually driving it or not, he's getting ascribed the benefit of being the guy. And what I find so fascinating is if you put a president in the White House who measures the economic health of America by the stock market, it's going higher. The guy is not going to let it go down. And so I actually think the bigger question is not, is the stock market going higher? Is Bitcoin going higher? All that. Of course it's going higher. It's what is the ancillary damage that is going to be needed to be created in order to make that happen? Now, what's fascinating is that Doge, Department of Government Efficiency, they're saying we're going to slash all this spending, but we're also going to pop the stock market. We're going to pop Bitcoin. We're going to do all this stuff. Usually you would say if stock market goes up, it's because we're spending a lot. It's because we're devaluing the currency. But what's fascinating to me is they're trying to do both. If they pull this off, just put them up there. I don't know whether 4 or 5 guys on Mount Rushmore, just move some over, put the 6th one. We never had a president in my lifetime that's been able to drive asset prices, not add to the national debt, and cut spending. It's a trifecta. No one's been able to do it. The last time we had a balanced budget was in 2000. And guess what happened? Stocks crashed in the dot-com bubble, right? And so when you look at this, you say to yourself, like, it's incredibly difficult to do this. The odds are stacked against them, right? There's a lot of campaign promises, all this bullshit, whatever. If you are a betting man or woman, you have to bet against them, right? In the sense of just the odds are against them. But if you said, what do you need to do to pull this off? You need somebody who can buck the system. Okay, you got Trump. You need somebody who has immense attention to detail and just chaotic management, Musk. So you got Trump and Elon. Then you need an outsized number of the smartest people in the country to come work a la Manhattan Project to cut spending, Doge. And then you need investors who don't look at data but listen to narratives, retail. And you start to line all this up. You say, you know what? This may work. I don't know if it's going to work. I'm along for the ride like everybody else. But they got all the ingredients. Now we got to see, is Trump really a good chef or not? Is that the young people are actually better positioned to weather the storm of volatility than the older generation because they got crypto. They've seen this. You tell me one person in the stock market that bought a stock, it rode up hundreds of percent, it dropped 80%, and then it went 5x from there, and they didn't sell. Some smart ass will tell me, I know my uncle did that, or my cousin. Okay, cool. What if I told you 1 out of every 2 Bitcoin in the market did that? 50% of the circulating supply hasn't moved in 2 years. It's crazy what a large percentage of this industry. So I wrote at 2021, I believe it was, or maybe the beginning of 2022. There's an investor who I'm not going to say was yelling and screaming about the market top, blah, 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 whatever. And I said, it don't matter. This is the generation of volatility. They have stronger hands than you do because when Bitcoin went from $8,000 in the halving of 2020 to $69,000 along the way, it drew down 30%, I think 5 or 6 times. That type of volatility, they didn't sell. And then it dropped 80%. They still didn't sell. It went up 500%. They still didn't sell. Volatility doesn't scare them. They want the volatility.
Despite these challenges, Bitcoin's bull market dynamic remains strong. Pompliano unpacks the journey from speculator to long-term holder and why this shift underpins Bitcoin's price sustainability. As younger investors embrace volatility with iron hands, the narrative remains bullish. Governments may attempt control, but Bitcoin's decentralized spirit persists. Could regulation shake the foundation, or will it ignite the next wave of adoption? Stay tuned. This is a story far from over.